figured I should make the tea before I spill it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm V, and in today's video, I'm going to be diving into the juicy details of my experience hiring and working with an alpha reader. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if someone watching doesn't know what an alpha reader is, because I think up until last year or this year, I only knew what a beta reader was, and I had no idea that alpha readers existed. Most people know that when your draft is as polished as you can take it, you give it to beta readers for their feedback. An alpha reader, however, looks at the rough drafts of your novel. They usually focus on developmental aspects such as originality, pacing, characters, setting, overall plot, underdeveloped storytelling elements, plot holes, dialogue, things like that. Basically, they focus on things that you want to nail down and tackle before moving on to finer edits in later drafts. The novel that I submitted to my alpha reader, Project Soulmates, was just finished draft 2, so it was a very rough draft, and that's why I decided I wanted an alpha reader's opinion and feedback before going into the finer edits that I want to tackle in the later drafts of my novel, and that's basically what led me to the idea of hiring an alpha reader. Okay, can we talk about how hard it is to give out a vulnerable piece of work for someone else to read? It's anxiety inducing, to be honest, and it's probably the hardest part of this whole entire process. That's why it was so important for me to find an alpha reader who could potentially see the story for what it could be rather than what it was. I'm gonna get into how I found my alpha reader, but first, I wanted to share with you what she told me when I expressed to her my worries and doubts, in hopes that maybe it could console some of you if you have any fears or worries about hiring someone else to go over such a vulnerable manuscript that you may have been working on. So she said, "First and foremost, thank you for letting me see your work. I can empathize with the vulnerability you feel when you present one of the iterations that is yet to be edited, nipped, and tucked. Hopefully my comments, reactions, and report encourage you, hype you up, and point you towards parts of the manuscript that could be developed in a bit more detail. Please keep in mind that this is your story. You know which course is the best, and every suggestion I make is just that, a suggestion. You have the autonomy and authority to take and reject what you like, and in the worst case scenario, you will know what you definitely don't want." Now, of course, not all alpha readers are the same, but most of them will generally go by that same mindset, and so I thought I would share that with you guys because it definitely soothed my worries when I read that. So how did I find my alpha reader? Well, in the past, I used to use my twin sister as an alpha reader, and that was great. I mean, she's a reader, she writes, and she was actually able to give constructive feedback even though we were related. But I knew that for this draft, I wanted a stranger's opinion, and I wanted someone who was highly experienced as an alpha reader. So I did some digging, I did some research, and Fiverr stood out to me as a great platform to find an alpha reader on. So I did a thorough search on Fiverr for alpha readers, and one of them stood out to me because of a lot of important factors, and her name is Lily Boken. I asked her if it was okay to use her name in this video, and she gave me permission. The factors that stood out for me were that she has a ton of reviews, and that's important. Not only that, but she's a 5-star rating, and of course I'd want to go with someone who's a 5-star rating. She had 2 other important qualities that are so important for an alpha reader to have, in my opinion, for them to have good quality work, and it's that she's an avid reader and she's a writer herself. Another bonus was that her package was really affordable to me. I'm a college student. I don't want to be spending so much money on edits and alpha readers and beta reading, so the fact that her package was affordable was a win for me. So after chatting back and forth with Lily a couple of times, I decided this is exactly what I wanted. I was all in, and I placed my order, and my manuscript was in her hands. After the allotted time that she needed to go over it, it was back in my hands with her edits, and now it's time to take a deep dive into the feedback she gave me. So it's finally time to spill the tea. Which I'm not actually gonna do. Figurative. Okay, so I haven't actually revealed much about my novel on this channel, even though I do a lot of writing vlogs. I kind of like to keep my work in progress as much of a secret as I can, but I realized that for you to understand the feedback that I got, you should know at least the basics of my project, so here it is. Basically, Project Soulmates, which is the working title, by the way, it's not actually called Project Soulmates. The working title is Soulmates. I just call it Project Soulmates. I'm clarifying that because I think my alpha reader even got confused, because I think she thought that Project Soulmates is my working title, which was so dumb of me. I shouldn't have put that there, but you know, it's Soulmates. That's the working title, project before it. Anyways, so Project Soulmates is a YA romance that could be comped to the soulmate equation times the hating game. So basically, my main character lives in a futuristic time where people are matched with their soulmates via the soulmate match ceremony. My main character, Anna Scott, is a lover of love and has been waiting for the day that she gets matched basically all her life. But when the day finally comes, she's matched with her high school arch nemesis, Ian Fraser. There's more to it, but that's all I'm going to share for right now. But I should say that my alpha reader knew none of that going in. She didn't get a query letter. I didn't give her a blurb or anything like that. I just gave her my manuscript, so she didn't know the genre genre, she didn't know the premise of it, but I thought that worked really well because I wanted to see if she could pick up on those aspects herself via just the words alone and not being told the blurb before reading it. Okay, so there were two parts of the package that my alpha reader gave back to me after going through my entire manuscript. One was my entire manuscript with line edits of all the commentary that she made. The other was an in-depth reader report on important aspects of my novel such as dialogue, characterization, plot, etc. First, let's look at the document with line edits, which by the way, I looked at right away and read through every single one because I was just anticipating it so much. I was like, I need to know what she thought of everything. So immediately upon opening the document, my alpha reader's comments were very easy to find and read, which I appreciated so much. And as you can see here, she was able to pick up on the trope of my novel without me having to have given it to her, which is a great sign that I set that tone right. So as a general summary of her feedback, she had a great mix of constructive criticism, encouraging feedback, and straight up hilarious commentary. Being able to get a reader/writer's thoughts, opinions, and comments on your novel is so valuable and very insightful. And the encouragement that I received from her was so reaffirming to me as a writer that what I'm doing, what I'm writing, matters. Let's take a look at some of that feedback in the reader's report. Okay, the first section on the reader's report was first impression and readability. Feel free to pause and read it at any point. I'll borrow anything that spoils, but this feedback genuinely made me emotional. Once again, like, writing is such a private, personal matter sometimes that sharing it with someone else and having someone else say positive things about your words and your writing is such a heartwarming feeling. Next section was the dialogue analysis. And as we know, dialogue is a very, very important part to novels. It has to be realistic, it has to flow, it has to be engaging, and everything you say should be meaningful. So, of course, you want to know how your dialogue comes across before you dive into finer edits in your other drafts. The point that she gave to me about it feeling more like boy pulling crush's hair rather than it being like enemies is a great example of really, really useful constructive criticism, because now I can take this information and decide, okay, do I want to keep the boy pulling his crush's braid feel, or do I want to drive more animosity between these two characters to drive up a deeper enemy to lover aspect? So very, very valuable to know, and that's something I didn't pick up on my own. The next section was structure feedback, and I barred out most of it because most of it spoils, but essentially she dove into two specific parts of my story and gave advice on how to really make them pack a punch, which again, super helpful. I'm gonna point out, and it was pointed out earlier by what she said when I told her my initial worries, but the thing about alpha reader feedback, same as beta reader feedback or anyone's feedback really, is that you don't have to make the changes that they're suggesting. They're just suggestions. But essentially, you're the author, you're the writer, you know your characters the best, you know your story the best, and you can do whatever it is that you think feels right. But it's so, so helpful to hear what someone else thinks, because other people are going to be reading your story and you want them to be impacted as well. Also, now I guess is as good a time as any to point out that I probably should have gone more than one alpha reader. It's way more valuable to get multiple feedback, because then you can see where their feedback coincides, because the things that multiple parties touch on are probably the things that you want to change for sure. But I was like, I don't want to pay for multiple alpha readers, and I don't know if I really need multiple people this early on, so for beta readers for sure I'm doing more than one, but for alpha readers I just had this one alpha reader. Okay, the next section was character development, and my alpha reader basically went through the major characters of my novel and wrote down essentially what she gathered about them, who they are, what their internal conflicts are, and how they overcame their arcs. She also included a little snippet about the secondary and tertiary characters, which again is very important to a novel, because sometimes you have characters in there that really don't need to be in there, and that impacts the flow of your novel. And sometimes some aren't fleshed out enough, sometimes they're too dry, too bland, too boring. So secondary and tertiary characters are more important than you think. The next section in the reader report was pacing and plot, which is such an important edit to make before diving into finer edits. And I think that one kind of speaks for itself. The biggest area of improvement that I found in this overall report that I have for my novel is found in the world conflict / situation portion, where the particularities of my soulmate match ceremony is dissected and discussed. Now, I knew this would be an issue because having something so complex that is fiction, meaning that you can't do research on it because it's not real, means that you have to come up with every little aspect and detail of it so that everything lines up and it's believable, which is something I hadn't fully done yet. So my alpha reader pointed out eye-opening questions about how the soulmate ceremony works that she found while she was reading through it, and she encouraged me to really hone down every single detail and aspect so that I can really drive the impact of it. And the key thing that she said that I thought was so important and such good advice is that when it comes to coming up with these fictional aspects of your world, is that you need to get every single detail down, but you don't necessarily need to explain every detail in your novel. The reader doesn't need to know every single logistic of these fictionalized elements of your novel, but it's important that you as the writer knows all of those details because it'll really help you in the writing process. So all that being said, I know that a major focal point for me when I'm tackling revisions for draft 3 is honing down every detail of this soulmate match ceremony so that it's believable and people don't have a million questions running through their head when they're reading it. So for the interpersonal conflict section, most of it is barred out because it spoils, but essentially she highlighted the 3 major conflicts in my novel, you know, like person versus this versus that, and how I could really make an impact. She then listed a few other plot and pacing questions that she had that came up while she was reading my novel. Okay, the next section was things that pulled me out of my story, and this is such an important section because people read books to be pulled into them. If something is pulling them out of the story, you do not want that in it. Again, I had to bar out this section because it spoils, but it was very, very helpful feedback on just not a single scene or part necessarily of the novel, but an aspect of the novel that kind of pulled her out a little bit. Finally, she put in suggestions and general questions she had throughout the novel. Again, very helpful, and she ended off with a final note, which again made me weepy. I was reading it and I was like, oh my god, thank you. Like, it's just, again, it's so nice to hear something positive about something that you work so hard on. Like, this novel's my baby. So that was a deep dive in my alpha reader experience, and overall I could not recommend hiring an alpha reader more. All of the feedback left me fired up to get into draft 3 and start the revision notes to make it so much better than it is right now. And with her report and her inline edits, I feel like I have so much to work with, so I'm so grateful for her and for her feedback in general. As for hiring on Fiverr, I haven't hired an alpha reader on any other platform, so I can't compare it with any other alternatives, but I will say my experience with Fiverr was amazing. I love that you can see people's reviews and their ratings, and that you can communicate directly with the seller before you hire their package just to make sure they're the right fit for you. You can also leave a review afterwards, and then you can leave a private review that they won't be able to see, which is also a great feature. Overall, great experience with an alpha reader and hiring an alpha reader off of Fiverr. I really hope you guys have found this video helpful in any way, and if you did, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean so much to me if you hit the like button, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit the post notification bell so you're notified the next time I upload a video. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!